Welcome to a new edition of our Member Spotlight, Community Broadband Action Network, our opportunity to shine the spotlight on our great members that make our organization what it is. And today we are turning our attention to one of our associate members. This is Camvio, and this is Travis Rice with Camvio. Travis, thanks for coming on the Member Spotlight.
Curtis, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
My pleasure. I gotten to know you and your team here, 3 or 4 years ago, and you guys have always been great supporters of CBAN and come to our events and everything. So when we met here a couple of weeks ago in Dallas, and was like, why haven't we done a member spotlight with you guys yet? So long overdue, but here we are. So glad to be able to share this with you. So Travis, just right out of the gate, why don't you just kind of introduce yourself and what your role is at Camvio?
Yeah, so Travis Rice, I'm the Senior Director of Sales and Marketing at Camvio. Been with the company for about 2 years. Actually, yeah, my 2-year anniversary was last week. But yeah, so Camvio is a full-fledged, end-to-end OSS, BSS. We essentially are the orchestration layer for a lot of service providers and CSPs in the market, as well as utility operators as well. Mm-hmm. The main focus for us really is just helping our end customers connect their customers, whether it be in the field, via network, even in just accelerating a lot of their revenue operations. So super excited to be here and really excited to be one of the associate members for CBAN.
Happy to have you. And you guys were great participants in our successful OSS BSS Spotlight series that we had, our showcase, whatever we called it, at the Spring Summit here in Iowa a few weeks ago. What kind of did you get some positive feedback coming out of that?
Yeah, a lot of good feedback. And I think too, like the OSS BSS Spotlight was a great event. And I think to just showcase all the associate members and what they do for, the broader membership is phenomenal. And so as a OSS BSS, we're acting more as like the central nervous system for a lot of our customers. And so being able to highlight any areas, for alignment and ways that we can solve any industry facing challenges, not just from a Camvio standpoint, but from a billing and operations support perspective, that session and that kind of time was great to surface a lot of those topics. So
I kept referring to it as OSS BSS speed dating, but I did have a lot of feedback from the attendees who really appreciated the opportunity to see multiple presentations, including Camvio's there at our Spring Summit this March or April, I guess it was still. So let's talk about Camvio as a company in general. Talk a little bit about the origins of Camvio and how you guys came into this market and providing this solution.
Yeah, so company was founded back in 2019. Our two co-founders, Amir Haydarkin and Jennifer Logston. If you haven't met them by now, I'm sure you guys might cross paths, at a conference or some other event. But they ended up coming together and putting their heads together to come up with the Camvio offering. So Jennifer has her background and her experience with efficiency consulting, primarily focused on OSS, BSS. While Amir, on the other end, was more the technical guru of building billing systems. So they put their heads together, and then Camvio came out of that back in 2019. Been successful ever since. I would say we've been profitable since year 2. And yeah, just kind of ramping and scaling as fast as possible. We're a family-owned company, non-investor backed, which is great. So, we really value our product, the customer input as well, just on where the direction of that's headed. But in terms of the origins and really the root of it, Jennifer and Amir, are kind of directing the ship, so to speak.
The industry, let's talk a little bit about the industry itself right now. A lot of transitions going on in broadband industry in general. And I'm sure you guys are feeling that as a vendor that provides an important element of a successful broadband network. What are some of the changes that you're seeing, and how does Camvio prepare itself for those changes?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one right now, and it's probably the biggest buzzword in our industry, is AI. And so one of the big focuses that we have is how we're layering that into our platform, whether it be for the customer experience itself, internal users, across all departments, as well as just being a bit more efficient on certain manual tasks or workflows. And so that's a big focus of ours, and how we're addressing that for the industry, since that's a really big need today. And then also just in terms of speed to revenue, like that, from the initial sign up of customers going through that process to getting an install and getting turned up for service, shortening that window, just providing a lot of efficiencies to customers on that end, and getting them through that pipeline as quick as possible is a big goal of ours, but also a larger trend that we're seeing across a lot of CSPs in the market. And so for us, I would say those two are some of the bigger ones that we're addressing right now. But in terms of the system and scalability there, it's great because we can layer in a lot of the AI components to help solve those bottlenecks or inefficiencies.
So your approach to AI is to use it as a tool to create efficiency, not necessarily as a replacement for something.
Correct. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day too, people were scared early on about how AI could come in and, take away jobs or, maybe replace their function. But we look at that as more of an enhancement to their role. What can they do with it if they're enabled in their, in their workspace and their ecosystem? And so if we can provide some of that functionality for them in their role, if we can be a bit more efficient on that end, it just enhances their function.
One thing I've noticed about the past few years is the number of companies that are in this space, this operational and billing support, seems to keep growing. Why is that? Why is now there's such a growth in newer companies coming out, or maybe even older companies reinventing themselves?
I believe there's kind of two paths to it that I've seen, and the main one is a lot of our customer base today, and even those just looking for systems today, they go down two paths primarily. Whether they want a system that has everything from accounting to billing to mapping to a CIS type functionality, where they want a one-stop shop. And then on the flip side of that, it's more modular. It's very, best of breed. That's really where Camvio fits into it. Is we come with a lot of pre-integrated partners, and we have open APIs. So working with some of the best in their own lane with mapping and accounting, other sorts of partners there. And so I think because of that split, it gives other vendors, similar to us, the ones that we compete with, more room to expand into that part of the market that's looking for more of a strategic fit of a software, compared to those that want something that covers the broader business. So there is, I would say, a delineation of those two types of buying groups. But by doing that, we're naturally segmenting the market and then providing more room for other competitors or players to get into the space.
It does seem to me that you mentioned modularity. That seems really important because it seems that, 15, 20 years ago, the systems that broadband operators were adopting were a pretty monolithic thing, right? And, a lot of gear in a rack and the servers and all that stuff. But a lot of that is becoming, like you said, more modular, allowing people to pick and choose more of the solutions that are the best fit for them.
Yeah. And I think that a big benefit of that as well, and nothing against, having more of a la carte platform where you offer a range of things. I think having the ability to choose, though, helps a lot of those more tech-enabled organizations, the ones that, hey, we want to use the best mapping system that we can find. We want to find, the best accounting system, rather than just kind of, getting pigeonholed with what they can get with one vendor. And so that modularity is key. And we find that just being nimble on that end really helps with their experience as well, because they know who to go to directly for that. If they need help, they're submitting tickets or just enhancements as well. It's a bit more manageable on that end.
So when you talk to people like you did at our OSS BSS showcase in our spring summit, or you talk to someone at a trade show, a broadband operator comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a solution. What does that process look like for you, without obviously giving away any of your
Yeah,
secrets? But
not the secret
what is that
sauce.
process to take someone from that first handshake all the way to full implementation?
Yeah, I think really what it comes down to is doing an audit of their existing, tech ecosystem, really figuring out what the use case is as well. And so in our discovery process, and I'm more than happy to explain this too, is really just finding the alignment of where they're at today and where they want to be, and where Camvio kind of fits into that mix. And so I heard over this past week, when it comes to an OSS BSS migration, or if they're moving systems, it's typically, I'd say in this kind of scenario, is like a heart transplant, right? And so it's very delicate in the way that you handle it and the way that you involve a lot of departments and folks that have input on it. But for us, it's just making sure that we're aligned from a functionality standpoint to begin with, whether we can address a lot of those needs. But also to get them to the point of a deployment and, migrated off of a system and using Camvio. It's very, very efficient and effective. So we go through a few rounds of just, data validation. We're checking what they have and what they're using, and just making sure that a lot of that stuff aligns with a more, enabled state of their systems. So typically coming off of a legacy platform, it's a big change, but, kind of nurturing and hand-holding that relationship all the way to deployment. That's really how we go about it.
There's really kind of like two markets out there for what you guys do right now. You've got legacy providers. They've been doing broadband for some number of years and are maybe looking at transitioning to different tool set. Then you've got increasing number of startups, whether they be municipalities or open access or whatever. So you got to kind of be nimble in how you approach those too, right? Is the onboarding process significantly different for one versus the other?
Greenfields are significantly easier, I would say. And the reason why is there's less moving parts. And I think too, the habits that come with a migration of, an existing system and people using, a certain platform for so many years. Those are hard habits to change. Whereas with a greenfield, whether it be, an investor-backed build or, a muni, or even, a city working towards an open access network, a lot of those processes, they're new, they're refining them, they're kind of building still as they go. And so it's easier for us to come in and kind of mold those processes along with them. Whereas with a migration from a legacy system, most of the time it's, a lot of them ask to pour from one cup into another and just kind of keep the processes the same. That's not our way of life at Camvio. It's more about efficiency and cost reduction when implementing our platform. And so those take a little bit more, coaching, nurturing, and revision of processes, business processes. Whereas a greenfield, they hit the ground running and they're ready just to build and scale and tweak as they go.
Yeah, and that speed to revenue is probably is a huge factor with those greenfield versus the traditional. And I'm glad you mentioned the human element there, because in an earlier life I was part of one of these transitions from one system to another, and there were a lot of frayed nerves, but by the time it was done, so and it's exactly what you said. People are used to doing something one way, and nobody wants their cheese moved, let's face it. So if my cheese is here, I don't want you to move it over there. It's always worked fine right here, so leave my cheese alone. I hope everybody knows what I'm talking about with moving my cheese. So when you probably have to work a little bit with have to have a little bit of a kid glove mentality when you're working with these ones that are transitioning, right?
Yeah, it's we like to tout, it's more of like a white glove service what we provide. We want to be the Ritz-Carlton in the industry for OSS BSS systems, and that has to do with the end customer experience. How do they receive the onboarding of the platform and the training and the deployment? And so that human touch and really being there and working as a partner rather than just a transactional vendor, I think just eases them into that full release of the system. And so that's a big focus of ours. And I think too, at the end of the day, if you get that buy-in, the usage early on, whether it be from grassroots, like, a lot of day-to-day employees utilizing a system like that to leadership, it creates a cohesive user kind of ecosystem. Yeah.
Great. You talked a little bit about AI and how that you at Camvio are working to integrate that as a tool to make workflows more efficient. What are some of the other things that maybe you see on the horizon, that Camvio sees on the horizon in the broadband industry that you're preparing to address?
Yeah, AI can address a lot of things. I really see it more as an enhancement to certain functions of a business. It could be billing, it could be field ops, and so on and so forth. But where we're looking at growth in the market and really the applicability of our platform and the scaling of that too as well is not that it's going to be a race to the bottom in terms of pricing for the end subscribers and the acquisition of new customers. But a lot of CSPs need to be more competitive in their market. And it's becoming more apparent that competition is not going to go away, whether you are the incumbent or you are a very well-known name in your market. And so a big focus for us is helping our customers be more competitive and providing them the tools to last longer in that market and to be more rooted in their community, so that from a take rate standpoint and in customer acquisition, they can still grow and scale, although competition is entering their market. And so equipping them with those tools and really ramping up more on the sales and customer acquisition side really is a big focus of ours. I'd say over the next couple of years, we're going to see a big change there, just with a lot of M&A. But that's always been a big focus, even just for greenfields and even migrating companies.
When you do an implementation, whether it's a conversion or a greenfield, how do you approach that from a staffing issue? Do you actually send people on site and sit down across the desk from that customer service person who is going to be interacting with the software?
Yeah, so we definitely do that. I'd say it's twofold. So we have quite a detailed migration process, and so involving a deployment team as well as those on the data side, just to validate a lot of what's being converted from the previous system, but also just virtual touch points as well. With us being a US-based company, we have employees across all time zones, and so having resources available to them in their own time helps a lot, but also being on site, going through multiple sessions of validating their data, getting it converted over into our system. That hands-on approach really helps a lot. And then a big thing too as well, just because we have the ability to do it, is really emphasizing the executive kind of sponsor side of it through deployment. So showing that we're as committed to this process as they are for success. And so whether it be Jennifer or Amir jumping in and being more of a stakeholder for them and to show accountability there as well, I think that just aligns well with what their expectations are for deployment.
You guys are you are definitely road warriors. I run into the Camvio team quite frequently when I'm at various events. Like I'll be at Fiber Broadband Association Fiber Connect this summer. I'm sure I'll see you guys there.
Oh, yeah.
And many other places. And where do you call home personally, Travis?
So I'm just based outside of Sacramento, which is nice. It's I'd say this time of the year right now, it's
gotta be beautiful.
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say we're headquartered out of Newport Beach, California. Jennifer and Amir, Arizona, and then Amir's in Southern California. But yeah, we're all across the U.S.
You got a distributed team.
Yep.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we've been showing your website address here. If you are listening to this and not watching this on our YouTube channel, I will list the address in the description below. So want to encourage everybody to check out Camvio. I also like to encourage everybody, if you like what you're hearing, hit the like button. If you want to be informed when we have new episodes of Member Spotlight, you want to subscribe to this and you'll get those notifications. And Travis, we'll see you down the line. I know we'll see you in Orlando here.
Orlando, yeah.
Yeah. And Florida in the middle of summer. Could be wrong.
Wear some linen. You gotta stay cool. Yeah.
I'm not going to complain. It gets out of Tornado Alley. We've had a really bad bunch of weather here in the Midwest lately. All right. Well, our guest today on this episode of Member Spotlight has been Travis Rice. He is with our associate member, Camvio. Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time here on Member Spotlight.